Hello everyone! We're over here on my brother's map today where he's got another challenge for me. My brother tells me he's putting in a meat factory and wants some kind of Rube Goldberg-inspired meat flinging device, so I'm gonna give it my best shot. And just so you know, I'm trying not to show off too much of my brother's map, so we're gonna keep the render distance a bit lower today. And I've left some surprises at the end of today's video.
So stick around at the end.
So now we're over here on a creative version of the map, so I can try out a few things here. So, meat flinging, huh? First thing that comes to mind is I want some sort of device, probably hidden in the floor about here, that will huck meat over the staircase. I think that would be a nice little showy aesthetic kind of thing. You walk in and then over the stairs here. And so I'm gonna go ahead and see what I can come up with. First, I need to clear out some space, so I'm probably going to lower the floor here by a good chunk. I got plenty of space to hide all the redstone. Yeah, I'll be right back. So what you see here is the fourth design of this first flinger here. It took me quite a while to figure out the mechanics of launching items. I'm not too well versed in redstone, but I did use what I know about redstone to kind of come up with all the devices that you'll see here today. And just a heads up, we're going to be going over a lot of mechanics today, and I'm going to be trying to explain them the best I can. So this is what I came up with here. It does some pretty good flinging. I'm going to show you how it works. So we've got a dropper that kind of plops meat out into this little trough here. Fed by this hopper, and of course at some point we'll have a hopper line for the input system. You look down here, we've got a sticky piston with a slime block on it that launches the meat this way, and then timed up so that when it reaches this point, this fires up. So it kind of creates this arc to it. Now something that I've realized is with the dropper system, it kind of plops things out in a different order. And with the timing that I have hooked up here, what happens is you get some variance to how things are flung. It's not one consistent stream. And so we've ended up with 3 different locations that meat can end up landing. One being right here on the other side of the staircase, one here, and then there's a high variance of where it lands once it hits the wall here. What I have going on here, here's the timings for underneath. We've got 1 tick repeater right here, got this system here, and 1 tick there as well. So what this little mechanism here is for is whenever an item enters the dropper, it sends a signal out, which powers this sticky piston here, firing the observer up. The observers see each other. They give a rapid pulse back and forth. We pull that pulse out through this block using the repeater here, send it down this redstone line, and then feed it into our firing mechanisms here. So that's enough talking about the complicated mechanisms behind it. Let's see how it works. So as you can see, we do get some variance, and I think this this is about as good as you're gonna get when you ask for meat flinging. This certainly looks like it's being flung, I would say. So as you see, everything got caught up. The system is not entirely lossless. Because of the timing, sometimes you get a few pieces that end up stuck in the system without being fired off. Sometimes they end up here, sometimes they end up back there. But everything else is caught in these hoppers. So one thing my brother did note with this system is that he's really wanting to collect the leather. And so we have this wagon that he built over here that we'll be getting to at some point. This is where all the leather is going to be getting collected. Now for the meat, since he plays on peaceful mode, there's not really a good reason for him to keep all of it. So he said that he kind of wanted me to just throw it back into the spectacle. One of the things that I want to work on next, now that we've got this good movement coming through the room, since it ends up over here against the wall, I think I want to fire it up so we have some movement on this side of the room as well. So we'll connect this hopper system into a mechanism that's going to fire them up from here. And let me go try and figure that out now. So we have a dropper that's facing the back wall here. It's very important that it's facing the back wall because of the variance of how the dropper plops it out. You're going to end up with stuff coming straight up this back wall here. If you had it facing this direction, it would probably pop back up and a lot of them would land back in the hopper. You'd end up with an infinite cycle here. We don't really want that because I think what I want to do next is have it caught in a water stream here that's going to bring it back out into the center of the room and go up into the ceiling here. Now, the way that this all works, we're using the same mechanism so that whenever there's an item that enters the dropper, this fires it off, and then we're reading that signal back down into here and feeding it into our piston here that's firing everything up. The reason why I'm using obsidian is because the slime doesn't stick to it. You could also use glazed terracotta, or I think there's a few other blocks that it won't grab onto. Furnace would work as well. So it is important that you use some block that's not going to get caught on the sticky pistons on the slime, I should say, for both of these firing mechanisms. And of course, whenever you have exposed hoppers, if you can, it's best to put a composter on top. It helps with reducing lag. So let's see this thing firing in the system with this. So we have it firing across the room, landing in here, and then firing. As you can see, it's firing straight up. Now, even still, with that dropper firing at the back wall here, you're going to get variance. Sometimes it will feed back into this hopper. Sometimes it'll land over here. So it's very hard when using droppers to not have loss within the system because things are going to get caught just due to the variability of where it's popping it out at. The system doesn't need to be hyper efficient. More so, you know, it's more about the spectacle. And there's one of the caught ones there. Than it is about having a lossless system. We're trying to put on a show here. But let me go ahead and start working on a water stream. Now you may have noticed that I seem to have lost my connected textures and my performance mods. Right now there's an issue going on with my graphics card and the sodium mod. And near the end of the video we end up switching over to the 1.20 update so I can get those back and show things off with a little more pizzazz. So here's what we went with for the water stream. I did put a pillar here in the corner to try and prevent some of those that were landing over here on this block. Now they should more than likely get fired up. But the meat will now get fired up into here and get pushed along this water stream that I have broken up with some glow lichen. It's one of the best water line breakers as far as I know. It's far less likely for items to get caught on this block as opposed to using like the old half slab or the sign. It just takes up far less space. And so that's the method I went with there. Of course, on the end here, we've got some soul sand and I kelped up all these blocks so they're all water sources. Up here, I did end up using some blue ice, but the blue ice just helps, helps the items not get stuck. And typically you'd want to use ice for your whole water line, but since we're going for some show here, Brother requested that we used as much glass as possible so that you can see. I would have preferred to use glass here on the side, but it's just functionally not going to work. Maybe he can come up with something else that he likes a little bit better than these trapdoors. There we go. See them getting fired into here. They go along. And I think what we want to do is maybe make a taller ceiling in this building so that we can get that height right there, because that's pretty hilarious looking. I'm loving this project. So now that we got this coming over here, I think what I want to do next is maybe build out on the side here just a little bit. So I think that I want to feed this water stream into another dropper that's probably facing at this pillar here. And I think we're going to launch it up to smack into this wall right here and drop down into a hopper here. And I think that will kind of complete our aesthetics of the meat flinging. Then we got a few other things that we got to work on. All right, let me try and figure out something for that and pop back in. All right, we got these glass pillars in, and I don't know if you've seen this mechanism, but it functions a lot like a water stream does, a vertical water stream. Although this is really useful as a tool in the nether if you're ever trying to transport items upwards, since you can't use water there. How this functions is we've got the glass beam here. It's a 3x3. You can do a cross shape, but I noticed that it's a little more reliable if you have a full 3x3 pillar here. You have a dropper down at the bottom, and when you use the dropper to send an item into the glass block, it tries to glitch out into any open space, but since it can't find one, being completely surrounded, it moves vertically. So it channels its way up through the pillar, much like a lava lamp does. Down here on these devices, I used a different mechanism for firing off the dropper. I wanted it to be a little more slow than our rapid fire release system on our Flinger there. And I did offset the timing on these ever so slightly because I do want them not in sync with each other. I want them firing at different rates. Gives a little more variability, a little bit easier on the eyes. Down here, from the meat that flings from there, hits the pillar, comes down. We have that being the last stop in the line. Drops down below the floor here and then is sorted into both beef and leather with an overflow chest, as you should always have whenever you're sorting items, just in case something that doesn't belong in the system ends up in the system. I don't know if you guys have seen these sorters here, but this is designed by Impulse SV.
Hey everyone.
It's a classic item sorting device here. You've got a line of hoppers coming across the top to distribute items. A line of hoppers facing forward, pointing into nothing, and then your actual line of hoppers below that point into either chests or end up in lines heading outwards. Behind here, we have comparators, 2 lines of redstone, drop down a line of redstone, drop down below here. We've got some repeaters, and then you want redstone torches on the front. In this line of hoppers here, you're going to want to designate what is your actual sort. So we're sorting raw beef here, and then you're going to want to have 11 placeholders of some sort, preferably an item that would never end up in the system. And then on top of that, if you name it something special, it's highly unlikely you'll end up with a birch sapling named placeholder in this system. If you were to put an unnamed piece of cobblestone here as your placeholder and someone dropped a piece of cobblestone in the system,
No! You have the mixture all wrong!
it's a hell of a mess that you don't want to have to clean up. Of course, whenever we have exposed hoppers, if we can, we like to put a line of composters over the top, and I suppose I should put a line of composters here as well. This helps reduce lag, and it's just good practices. Now, for this hopper here and the one here, I had a line that runs back in and feeds back into the system. You may notice that I dropped this whole device down by 1 block. It was running flush with the flooring here, and that was a complete mistake. It needed to be 1 below so that we could hide all of this redstone. In addition to that, I did flip the side that the dropper mechanism is on, as well as the redstone line, and that way I would have access to this hopper line here. That was something else I realized is that we're putting about 10 cow crushers right here, and we need to have the hopper lines being able to feed into this dropper to start the system. We have leather on this side, meat on this side, and these will feed into the ceiling here. Now the meat line is going to be feeding into our spectacle that I'm going to put on the roof, and I am excited to implement that one. You guys are going to love that. For the leather line here, we're going to have that come over, drop down, and end up in a system similar to this that then fires off into the wagon here. Aesthetically speaking, I'll have to have some discussions with my brother. I do know that these troughs are pretty easy to cover up with some hay bales, some barrels, things of that nature. Kind of blends in with the environment. These carpets will be replaced with ones that kind of match the flooring design here. And of course, this flooring design will be throughout the area. It won't be glass. I just wanted to have better visual of what's going on under the flooring for all of this. As I mentioned previously, we're going to have a bunch of cow crushers here, and I'll probably have a staircase coming down here, down into the basement, so I can access all of the redstone here. Have a stairway up to here. I know he wanted to put in some sort of managerial office to oversee the operations here at the plant. And then on this side, I believe we're going to put in some simple sheep farms, get some wool. We'll have all of those feed up into the ceiling here. and get fired down into this wagon for collection. All right, so a lot has changed since we were last speaking. Had a discussion with my brother about a few things and put in quite a bit more. So we got our cow crushers in here, and I did put a walking path in between. This is where you can come through and feed all of the cows to kickstart the system here. As far as the staircase down below, I put it underneath the catwalk here. Kind of threw in a pseudo floor so you would see where the ground level is going to be down here. Coming up top, what ended up happening was my brother made a very good point about how maybe the building was getting a bit too tall in order for you to be able to see the crazy spectacle I'm going to be putting on the roof. So I did lower the roof by about 4 blocks. And what that does is we're not going to have this flinging out the top here like I wanted before. But I think that's a good compromise to sacrifice this in order for you to be able to see what's going on up here a bit more. I did cut down on the amount of hoppers being used for the collection system. Should help out with some lag issues. With this piston flinging stuff, and don't worry, we're going to, again, spice everything up with some aesthetics. But one of the things I noticed is sometimes when this is flinging out, even though I put these blocks here to try and corral the launching to straightforward, you'll get a piece that launches out to the side and lands here or over here, and that's just something we're going to have to put up with, I think. I did put in the sheep farms over here, and while it is a bit tall, which is necessary in order to fit all of the devices down below, as you can see, we've got hoppers and hopper minecarts above that. If I tried to lower it any, it would start impeding on the floor down below. This is something that we're going to end up covering up with aesthetics as well. I imagine we'll put like a large stack of hay here in front of it, something of that nature. But this is fully functional, and I'm sure you guys have seen this farm before. So you have sheep standing on a grass block, with a dispenser facing in. And hey, there you go. That's it functioning right there. You have shears in the dispenser. You have an observer down below staring at the block that they're standing on, and a redstone dust on a block behind it. And what happens is when the sheep eats the grass and replenishes its wool, the shears inside the dispenser are automatically used as it detects that the grass block has changed, and it automatically shears them. Underneath this grass block, you have a hopper minecart, which will suck their wool block through, and then a hopper underneath that will then pull it through the hopper minecart and send it into whatever system you're trying to use. It's very important that you have a light source so that the grass will continue to grow, especially if you have this farm somewhere in a building or a cave, somewhere that's not out in the open where sunlight can hit and cause the grass to grow. I have everything feeding over into this line here where it is then droppered out into this water. There is no soul sand down below. It's a dropper facing straight up, and it looks like we have some wool getting stuck here. Again, not 100% lossless, but it'll do the trick just fine. We don't need a hyper-efficient system here. So this dropper will feed it up through the water line. It is a lot slower, being that there is no piece of soul sand to shoot items up, but it does function just fine. And if we come up here, you can see it comes up in the corner, comes around here, and drops down through this tube that is purely aesthetic at this point to feed down into this cart here, intended for the wool. If we come over here, the leather line now comes up this way, gets stuck in this trough, which is pushed sideways. I have a full blue ice line here. Comes down to the back here, drops into this hopper, which feeds into another dispenser, or sorry, a dropper. And then we have our unloading mechanism as per usual. The reason I used a dropper and not just have the items fall down is I want that randomness of it shooting out in different directions so that when it gets launched out, you get some variance in it. Whereas if we had this line, all of the items would end up in the same exact spot, and so you would get a continuous projectile out the front here. Aesthetically, I did cover up all of this redstone with, I don't know, I went with kind of like an air conditioning unit, an industrial air conditioning unit, or whatever you want to take this as. That was my iteration of it, or my interpretation of what this is supposed to be. And we did move this line over. Now, on the actual map, I did discuss with my brother, we will be moving the wagon over to match. But aesthetically speaking, this is kind of the pipe that I have things being flung out of. And I did test it over here where it will eventually end up when we move the wagon over, and it does fire just fine. This thing is functioning hilariously, and now is a good time for us to show off how it actually functions. So you come through here, you feed the cows until they start entity cramming, and you just go down the line. And as you can hear behind me, the machine is starting to take effect. Man, this thing's fun. Everything's working pretty well here. Looks like we ended up with quite a bit more beef than leather, and that is typical with slaying cows. Let's check this line out real quick. So this is where the leather is being shot out at. And we did use a new mechanism here for sending off our piston line. Forgot to show that off. So what we have here is a piece of string, which is very hard to see, but there's a piece of string with an observer staring at it. And so when the item falls through, piece of string gets updated. It sends an update to the observer. Observer staring at observer, observer staring at observer, comes through and fires off this piston. And that way, none of this mechanism needs to be functional unless there's items falling through the system. We don't want consistently running redstone, and I didn't want to drag a redstone line from here. Now, previously, I did have the ceiling 4 blocks higher, and so this made a little bit more sense. I suppose I could have just dragged this redstone line down. But this is another mechanism for me to show off to you guys, and you might be able to implement it in one of your builds. Now that that's all shown off, you might be wondering,
where's the beef
going? And that's going to be fed into our rooftop spectacle here that I'm going to have to show off a bit later. I think now is a good time for us to switch over to the actual survival map. I'm going to go gather some supplies, and we can start actually implementing all of these things on the real map. That's not going to be enough iron. So I'm going to build ilmango's peaceful iron farm.
Hi guys.
And that should get us enough supplies for today's project here. If you're curious about it, I left a link down in the description below. All right, so we're finally getting into the aesthetic building of things. I've got a bunch of screenshots and all that fun jazz to kind of show me what designs I came up with in creative. And so, yeah, we're just going to implement this stuff. As you can see, my brother already started building some stuff here. I'm not really sure what his designs all look like. I kind of took care of the aesthetics of the bottom floor, which I'll be putting in. And he's kind of dealing with the top floor and the ceiling. He built some stuff on the outside of the building as well. We're going to be messing with some banners here and parts of the build. But yeah, let's just jump right into it. look how this beauty turned out here. Let's check out some of the details that we have here in the final rendition. So you did see my brother putting this in a previous little clip. We drew a road around the building here, and my brother also put in this huge water tower. Turned out really nice. You do actually have ladder access up here to the top, but we'll check that out in just a little bit. Heading inside, this is the final rendition of the cow crushers that we ended up putting in. Thought it all too fitting that we had glass blocks for the top block here, that way you're able to see all of the cows. And I did put in some nice industrial lighting over top. I think that turned out fantastic. Coming over here, we've got ourselves a pig pen, and I did use leads to keep these guys in here, that way they didn't pop out and start wandering around the factory. And we used barrels to cover up our back trough here, as I had previously mentioned. Used a stack of hay bales for the feed of the animals to block the redstone dropping down from up above here. And we did end up moving the water line over one, and that way we were able to replace all of the trapdoors with glass blocks, giving you more of a better visual of all the mechanics going on here while the machine's running. As for the pigs here, you see that they pop up on the line, ride down this conveyor belt into this machine.
And the pig doesn't have to live anymore.
Then they pop out here on the other side as...
We're making sausages.
We head to the back of the stairs here and then pass under. I did make a nice little stairway down into the basement, and I did up the aesthetics down here. Now, of course, you've seen all of this redstone, and I've showed off how it all works, but just wanted to show I prettied it up down here a little bit. If you're wondering why there's all these torches spamming the area, it's because currently we're in the 1.19.2 update, where lighting still occurs for all the redstone and causes a bunch of lag. So if you have the torches, it helps with the lag issues. Now, once we switch over to 1.20, they did do the lighting overhaul, and I suspect that that might fix these lighting update lag issues with redstone. Coming on up into the landing here, you see we've got dirty uniforms on the left, clean ones on the right. Heading up these stairs, this is where the sheep's farm is. And it is kind of pushed in here, tucked in, just a little bit cramped. And that was so that my brother could fit in this machine here. He tells me this is what they use to clean out the impurities in wool. You kind of turn this crank, and it rips through all of the wool. We represented with cobwebs, of course. And if anyone ever gets stuck, make sure you stop the crank. Heading on up these stairs here, you'll see that we've got a nice catwalk. You can kind of see over the tops of the farms, and this is where the wool would enter. Now, let's go ahead and head on over to the other side here. We did end up covering up a lot of the redstone mechanisms with various copper. So the down line here for the leather, and this is the final launcher that flings meat out and slaps against the wall here. Of course, we've got the typical bathroom. We did put in some bathroom stalls where you can very awkwardly see through, just like real life. Got some sinks, a toilet stall, and a shower stall. Of course, employees must wash their hands before leaving. Come in here, this is the meeting room. Even though we just opened up, as you can see, our profits are through the roof. And boy, howdy, do they keep going. Head into the meeting room here. We've got contracts and a pen for all of our signing needs. Of course, the 4 steps to profit. Got some motivational posters and showing off our degrees here. And you can see this ladder right here. But I'm not quite willing to show off what's up there yet. We'll have to check on that in just a minute. Let me go ahead and show you the water tower real quick. So if we head on up these ladders here, you can see this is the upper platform. I think he did a phenomenal job of showcasing what a water tower would end up looking like. Looks really good. Now on the top of the building here, we did end up putting in a little red light. There's a red light on top of the water tower here as well. Really stands out in the night sky, and that's for any low-flying aircrafts to make sure they don't run into the structures here. as well as some antennae to give us internet access and various other things. But now I do... Took a bit of a tumble there. It was a hell of a time trying to get back to this spot. But I did want to say that before we show off what's up that ladder, I want to switch over to 1.20 creative version of the map so that I can show this off with shaders and connected textures and all of that good stuff, as well as my performance mods. So let me pop on over there real quick. One last thing I wanted to show off before we got to the rooftop spectacle was I had to move my brother's wagon over about 4 blocks to line up with this pipe that feeds the leather out. I did add a little bit of flavor to it, a little front carriage here, and then on the back side we've got ladders up into it. And kind of just cleaned up the inside here a little bit. Few less hoppers, believe it or not. And then I wanted to show off that, yeah, this is the aesthetics of how we covered them up on the backside. So I tried to put in what, you know, I kind of imagine is like an AC unit to cover up the redstone here. Then we put in a bunch of iron blocks and some dripping ice for where the leather ends up getting fired out. And I'll show this off when we run the system here. Speaking of which, let's go run the system. So this is what it's all about, right? The meat flinging. So let's come in here and kickstart the system. You can see that this is the first launcher, fires over into the trough. Sometimes we've got some that collide with this chandelier here. Those get fed back into the system where they run again. Once they make their way and slap against this wall here, they get fired up into the water stream. Water stream carries them up, over, into this firing mechanism that fires them out, and they slap against the wall here, drop down into the floor here, get sorted. Beef comes up this tube, leather comes up this tube, as you can see. Let's watch some of the leather fly out here. So it comes firing out of the tube, slaps into the top of this, gets caught in the hoppers, and can be collected from these barrels down below. Bet you've all been waiting for the rooftop spectacle. What's on the roof? Well, let's show you.
What is beef?
Beef. It's what's for dinner.
But where does the meat go?
Are you still going on about the meat? We're gonna steak night. We're gonna eat it right. Steak is such a treat. It is the world's best meat.
This is what it's all about. So this is where all the beef goes. It is a Bellagio-inspired meat fountain. So let's see how it all works. This takes us here. So here's the end of the leather line. It pops up into a water stream, comes over, and lands in the firing mechanism I showed off earlier. And that gets fired off into the cart. This is the beef line. And it runs up here, gets pushed into a water stream where a skulk sensor detects that the beef appears into the water stream. It goes along, and I did build this water stream all the way around so that we do end up collecting the beef. Eventually it will end up filling these all up as we continue to use it, although the amount of space we've got here will probably be a very long time. Until then, I have to manually fill the droppers here. But after that detects some beef coming up for the first time, it triggers this dropper, which drops a piece of dirt through a cobweb, which gives us ample time to get up and see the spectacle if we want to. Once it drops through, it lands on this pressure plate, which triggers this redstone seen by the observer. Got an observer watching the observer from below, and that sends the line down below, as well as this observer that sends out into this line. And we'll go over what all this mess is in just a second. But going down below, you can see that that downward one then splits off into this line and that line. And they just trigger these redstone lines here where these observers down below can see them, which sends the signal back upstairs. And these are the continuations of the lines down below. They end up powering this block here that has a piece of redstone dust on it that triggers these droppers on either side, which dispense some beef into the chamber. Down below, we have a sticky piston with a slime block and, of course, the obsidian so nothing gets stuck. And that's when this signal comes into play. So we basically have 4 different timings on signals that go around and end up triggering all of these pistons. You can see it splits off here in the middle, going either way, and that's how you get the stream split up above. So this is the first timing. It's real slow. Or I should say real fast. This is the quickest one. Only a little bit of delay. We have this line here. Split off from this line is a longer one. Basically how this works is it's just full delay repeaters that kind of follow and loop back in on each other, adding more and more delay before they feed back into this same system here, this being the longest one. I think it looks more complicated than it actually is. The only issue with this system is, of course, anytime that skulk sensor's detecting something, it's going to push out more dirt blocks. But we have a good number of dirt blocks on this map, so I'm not worried about this being one of the only things we manually have to come in and refill. For the time being, we do also have to refill these dispensers that are later in the line from the water stream here, because, of course, you know, the meat's only going to get collected probably in these first couple of them for a while, till all these hoppers and droppers end up filling up. But that's a hell of a spectacle, wouldn't you say? And I do have one more surprise for you all, but before we get to that, I just wanted to mention I did set up a new Discord server. In case any of you are interested in that, I would love to meet you. So stop on by. I've got the link in the description down below if that interests you. And then I did want to say, as soon as this video comes out, I'll be working on the next Warts and All episode. And in that one, we're going to finally update to 1.20. So that'll be pretty sick. You know, I'll get my performance mods back. I'll get these awesome shaders back. I love that stuff. There's a lot to explore in that update as well. But in order to do that, we're going to need to respawn the Ender Dragon. And if you're curious about why, you'll have to check out the next video. Apart from that, I just wanted to say, if you had a good time here, please like and subscribe. It really helps me out. And, you know, keep making videos. So if you like this one, you'll probably like the other ones. Without further ado, I have made a joke commercial for Meat Central. Enjoy. I'll see you next time. Bye.
Welcome to a world of savory delights. Here at Meat Central, our state-of-the-art facilities are bustling with the brilliance of our skilled employees, who are the backbone of our success.
When you join our team, you become family.
We take the safety of our staff very seriously. Our company never stops striving to improve our safety standards. With each bite of our succulent steaks, we invite you to envision a beautiful, peaceful farm where our livestock thrives in joy and harmony. Our meat products are crafted with a mysterious blend of spices and seasonings, known only to a select few, ensuring the finest quality and delicious flavors. But don't just take our word for it. Take it from a customer who can't stop eating our meat.
So come on down to the pleasure to plate capital of the world and join the Meat Central family, where trust and flavor meet.